History is often told as a grand procession of victories, of empires built and conquerors crowned. But this is not one of those stories. This is not a story about a victory. It is a story about a wound. A wound so deep it would fester for centuries, inflicted not by a triumphant army, but by a defeated queen. It's a story about how the greatest losses can echo through time, reshaping the very foundations of power in ways no one could have predicted. The wound was one of humiliation, a profound violation that cut deeper than any sword. It was the kind of injury that doesn't just scar the flesh, but sears the soul of a people, igniting a fire that cannot be extinguished by force alone. To understand it, we must travel back in time. Imagine the year 60 AD. The Roman Empire, a seemingly invincible superpower, stretches from the deserts of Syria to the shores of the Atlantic. And here, on the damp green edge of the known world, the newly conquered province of Britannia, Rome's grip feels absolute. For the Romans, this island is a wild, rain-swept outpost, a place of strange gods and restless tribes, a problem to be managed with legions and laws. For the people who live here, it is the end of their world. In this volatile landscape, a queen of the Iceni tribe was publicly flogged like a common slave. Her daughters, princesses of a royal line, were assaulted by Roman soldiers. Her kingdom, promised to her family by treaty, was stolen by greedy officials. This wasn't just cruelty. It was a calculated act of political terror, designed to break the spirit of a proud people and erase their identity. But it did not break them. It united them. In her grief and incandescent rage, the queen did the unthinkable. She forged an alliance from the shattered, warring tribes of Britain, who for generations had fought one another. Now, they had a common enemy. A tidal wave of vengeance swept across the province. They descended first on Camulodunum, the symbol of Roman oppression, then on the bustling commercial hub of Londinium, and finally, Verulamium. They turned their tormentors' greatest cities to ash, leaving behind a layer of destruction so thick that archaeologists can still trace it today. Her name was Boudicca, and while Rome, in its arrogance, wrote her off as just another barbarian rebel, a footnote in the glorious history of the empire, they were profoundly wrong. They saw only the rebellion they had crushed, the fires they had extinguished. They failed to see the true damage that had been done. Her true legacy wasn't written in the fires of Londinium, but in the slow, silent rot that began to eat the Roman Empire from within. It was a legacy of cost, the staggering expense of holding a province that had proven so volatile. It was a legacy of fear, the psychological shock that a woman from the edge of the world could bring the mighty legions to their knees, a cautionary tale that would haunt Roman governors for generations. This wound forced Rome to question the very price of its own expansion. This is the untold story of the Queen Boudicca, who challenged Rome, who lost the battle but began a war of attrition against an empire's soul. It is the story of how sometimes history is not shaped by the victor's sword, but by the enduring power of the vanquished. This is the story of how Boudicca changed history, not by winning, but by losing. To understand the explosion, we must see the fuse. Boudicca was queen of the Iceni, a client tribe in an uneasy peace with Rome. When her husband, King Prasutagus, died, he willed his kingdom jointly to Rome and his daughters, hoping to buy their safety. Rome's response was a masterpiece of cruelty. They ignored the will, annexed the kingdom, confiscated noble lands. And then, for the ultimate humiliation, Roman soldiers publicly flogged the queen and assaulted her young daughters. This was a calculated, brutal message. You are not people, you are property. That message created something Rome never expected, a perfect, unified enemy. Boudicca's call to arms was a lightning rod, igniting a province simmering with resentment. The message, carried by swift messengers on foot and horseback, spread like wildfire through the forests and farmlands of eastern Britannia. It wasn't just a plea for aid, it was a prophecy of liberation, a promise of vengeance against an occupying power that had taken their land, their wealth, and their dignity. The neighboring Trinovantes, who had seen their own capital transformed into the Roman colony of Camulodunum, were the first to answer. For them, this was a chance to reclaim their ancestral home. Their grievances were deep, their anger stoked by years of paying for the very temples that celebrated their subjugation. They joined the Iceni not as allies, but as brothers in a shared cause. Soon, others followed. This was no longer a localized Iceni grievance. It was a pan-tribal British revolt. The army that gathered was a spectacle of terrifying power, a vast migrating nation on the move. Warriors, painted in woad and armed with longswords, spears and slings, marched alongside their families. Their supply train was not a military convoy but a collection of farm carts and wagons, carrying their worldly possessions. Their strategy was one of overwhelming force and psychological terror, a stark contrast to the disciplined legions of Rome. Their first target was chosen with chilling precision: Camulodunum, modern-day Colchester. Camulodunum was more than a city, it was a statement. Settled by retired Roman legionaries, it was a bastion of Roman culture and arrogance, deliberately built upon the old Trinovantian capital. It was unfortified, its inhabitants complacent in their perceived superiority. At its heart stood the hated temple of the divine Claudius, a monument to the emperor who had conquered them, its construction funded by the very Britons it dominated. The rebels fell upon the city with unimaginable fury. Archaeological evidence reveals a thick layer of ash and destruction, a testament to the inferno that consumed it. The city was systematically erased, its inhabitants shown no mercy. The nearest Roman force, the 9th Legion Hispana, marched south from its fortress at Lindum, modern Lincoln, to relieve the city. Led by Quintus Petilius Cerialis, they were walking into a trap. The Britons, using their knowledge of the terrain, ambushed the legion in the dense forests. The Roman infantry, trained for open-field battles, were overwhelmed by the sheer ferocity and numbers of the Celtic warriors who swarmed them from all sides. The legion was not just defeated, it was annihilated. Only the commander and his cavalry managed to escape back to the safety of their fortress. The psychological shock was immense. A Roman legion had been wiped out. Emboldened, Boudicca's army, now swollen to an estimated 100,000 strong, turned southwest towards the commercial heart of the province. Far to the west, on the island of Mona, Governor Suetonius Paulinus received the catastrophic news. He immediately abandoned his campaign against the Druids and force-marched his troops across the country. He reached Londinium, a bustling, wealthy port teeming with merchants and financiers, ahead of the rebel army. But a grim reality set in. With only his personal cavalry, he lacked the numbers to defend the sprawling, unwalled city. He made a ruthless, yet strategically sound calculation. He would sacrifice the city to save the province. He abandoned Londinium and its terrified population to their fate. The inferno that consumed Camulodunum was repeated, first at Londinium, then at Verulamium, modern St. Albans. Both cities were burned to the ground. The Roman historian Tacitus, our primary source, claims 70,000 Romans and pro-Roman Britons were slaughtered across the three cities, with no prisoners taken. The rebels, in their fury, were not conquering. They were erasing every trace of Roman presence. The province of Britannia was bleeding, on the verge of being completely lost. But Suetonius wasn't fleeing in panic. He was executing a plan. Every step of his retreat was a calculated move, drawing Boudicca's massive, unwieldy army further away from its heartlands and deeper into Roman-controlled territory. He was buying time, waiting to reunite with his legions, the 14th Gemina and elements of the 20th Valeria Victrix. He was choosing his ground for a final, decisive confrontation. Somewhere along the Roman road known as Watling Street, he found it. A narrow gorge with dense woods protecting his flanks and a wide plain opening up before it. Here, the Britons' numerical superiority would be nullified. He assembled his force of roughly 10,000 of Rome's finest professional soldiers. They were disciplined, heavily armed, and now fighting for their very survival. Here, in this carefully selected kill zone, the chaotic passion of the rebellion would meet the cold, brutal efficiency of the Roman war machine head-on. Boudicca's force charged with righteous fury. But they faced a tactical nightmare. Funneled into a narrow front, their numbers became a weakness. The Romans unleashed volleys of deadly pila, javelins, then advanced in a deadly, disciplined shield wall. The final battle was not a contest of equals. It was a methodical, brutal, and horrifyingly efficient slaughter. The Romans, with their backs to a forest and their flanks secure, had created a perfect killing ground. The Britons, funneled into the narrow valley, charged with a courage born of desperation, but courage alone could not break the disciplined lines of the legions. The pila had done their work, shattering shields and disrupting the initial charge. Now, it was the gladius, the short, stabbing sword, that took over. In the crush of bodies, the Romans gave no quarter, their machine-like precision turning the battlefield into an abattoir. The Britons, trapped against their own wagon train which they had so confidently placed to witness a victory, had nowhere to run. Their families, who had come to watch the final liberation of their lands, became victims of the ensuing carnage. The Roman historian Tacitus, our primary source for these events, paints a grim picture of the aftermath. He claims that an astonishing 80,000 Britons, men, women and children, fell that day for the loss of only 400 Roman soldiers. These numbers are almost certainly an exaggeration, a common feature of Roman military accounts designed to magnify the glory of their victories. Yet, even if we halve that number, the scale of the devastation is almost incomprehensible. It was a demographic catastrophe for the tribes of southern Britain. The rebellion which had burned so brightly was extinguished in a single afternoon of blood and iron. And what of the queen who had ignited this firestorm? Boudicca's world ended on that field. For her, there could be no surrender. She had seen Roman justice firsthand. She knew what capture meant. It meant being paraded through the streets of Rome in a triumphal procession, a living trophy for her enemies, followed by ritual execution. Tacitus tells us she chose a different end, taking poison to escape this ultimate humiliation. Cassius Dio offers a conflicting account, suggesting she fell ill and died. But the image of the defiant queen choosing her own death, denying Rome its prize, is the one that has endured. Her fate, like so much of her life, slips from the cold, hard facts of history into the powerful realm of legend. Her body was never found. Rome had won, brutally, decisively. In the immediate aftermath, Suetonius Paulinus unleashed a wave of punitive actions, ravaging the lands of any tribe suspected of sympathy with the rebels. On the surface, Boudicca's rebellion was a catastrophic failure, a tragic chapter of resistance crushed by overwhelming military might. Her people were decimated, her lands were scorched, and Roman rule was re-stamped upon the province with terrifying force. But this is where the history books often stop, and where the real untold story begins. Because while the legions had won the battle, Boudicca's rebellion had delivered a seismic shock to the very foundations of the Roman Empire. Back in Rome, the Emperor Nero, already a paranoid and unstable ruler, had reportedly been so shaken by the news of the uprising and the loss of 3 major cities that he considered abandoning the province of Britannia altogether. It was seen as too costly, too volatile, too far away. The British project was on the verge of collapse. The financial cost of the rebellion was staggering. The destruction of Londinium, a burgeoning hub of commerce, along with Londinium and Verulamium, represented a colossal loss of infrastructure and tax revenue. Rebuilding would take decades and immense resources. And here's the pivotal shift. Rome learned a terrifying lesson. The rapacious greed of officials like the procurator Catus Decianus had been the spark. Extreme repression, they now understood, doesn't guarantee control. It creates existential threats. A province pushed too far would fight back with a ferocity that could threaten the legions themselves. The change was not immediate, but it was profound. Suetonius Paulinus, the victor of the final battle, was recalled to Rome. His purely military solution was deemed unsustainable. He was replaced by a series of more conciliatory governors. The abusive procurator who had helped trigger the revolt was replaced by one Julius Classicianus, who actively worked to curb the army's excesses and argued for a more moderate approach. Policies softened. The crushing tax burdens and illegal confiscations were reined in. Rome began to understand that to rule Britannia effectively, it needed not just soldiers, but a degree of consent from the governed. Boudicca, in her horrific defeat, had won a form of grim, posthumous justice for her people. She had proven that the price of unchecked brutality could be an empire's bankruptcy. And then, after centuries of silence, she was reborn. For nearly 1500 years, her story was largely lost, buried in the Latin texts of Tacitus and Dio. The medieval world had forgotten her. But with the Renaissance and the rediscovery of classical texts, her name re-emerged. It was the Victorians, at the height of their own global empire, who truly resurrected her. They saw in her a reflection of their own imperial might, a powerful, noble queen, a proto-Britannia. They conveniently overlooked that she was fighting an empire, not for one. In the 20th and 21st centuries, her image transformed again. For the suffragettes, she was a symbol of female power. Today, she is a feminist icon, a hero of anti-colonial movements, a symbol of indigenous resistance against a foreign invader. This is her complex, untold legacy. The warrior queen who lost the battle but ultimately forced an empire to reconsider its own cruelty. The defeated underdog, who through the power of her story, became more influential in myth than she ever was in her short, violent life. Her magnificent statue stands guard by Westminster Bridge, a stone's throw from the seat of a later empire, a permanent reminder of her defiance. She is the eternal relic of resistance. Her story teaches us that victory and defeat are not always clear-cut. It reminds us that some defeats sow the seeds for future change, and that a story of righteous defiance, passed down through generations, can become more dangerous to tyrants than any army. It becomes an idea, and an idea can never truly be conquered. History is written by the victors, but it is remembered by the inspired. Boudicca's flame was lit in Betrayal, burned across 3 cities, and was nearly snuffed out on a nameless field. Yet it still burns today. What other stories of defiant legacies should we uncover? Tell us in the comments. Who is a figure from history who lost the battle but won the legacy? If you want to explore more stories of those who rose against empires and left a relic behind for us to discover, make sure